He fought for freedom.
It's honoring who he was when he was alive, all the movements that he made for all of us in Mississippi and throughout the nation.
He was going to be there, and you knew he was going to be there. You didn't have to wonder.
Even though Medgar Evers was so involved in the movement, he still had that same level of commitment towards his family.
I think of him often every day.
Hello, I'm Byron Brown. Welcome to Medgar and Myrlie Evers, A Lasting Legacy. This WJTV broadcast special is coming to you here from outside the Jackson home where the Evers family lived. But this was also a crime scene where Klansmen shot and killed Medgar Evers in his driveway. Evers was a civil rights activist who lived under a constant threat of death.
I've had a number of threatening calls, people calling me saying that they were going to kill me, saying that they were going to blow my home up, and saying that I only had a few hours to live.
My heart and my memory is so wrapped up in what happened at that time. The anger is right up still. I haven't been able to release it like I had hoped that I would, because all of that takes me right back to the time when the love of my life, my husband, was shot down dead at our doorstep, June the 12th, 1963.
Evers had every right and ample reason to be concerned about his and his family's safety. Ursula Quinn with the National Park Service tells of what happened on that awful night, June 12, 1963.
What was happening that night was John F. Kennedy was speaking on the television in language that was sort of the precursor to the Civil Rights Act that would be passed on July 2nd, 1964, the following year on Medgar Evers' birthday. And inside there was a noise that was heard from the outside that was identified as gunfire, and that was the sound that would change their lives forever, because when they came out of the door, Myrlie Evers, along with her children, she saw her husband, their father, in a pool of blood, and in some of the last words that Medgar Evers might have heard was, "Daddy, get up, because his children are seeing him."
So he was shot as he got out of his car.
Yeah, so he was returning home from a mass meeting. Their cars, he usually parked behind a car that would usually be parked in the carport, and so he would get out on the passenger side as a safety precaution, which he did everything with safety in mind because of the threats that were constantly put out on his life and on his security and on his family. That night, being exhausted, he didn't follow that usual protocol of getting out on the passenger side and got out on the driver's side. And that is when Byron Della Beckwith, who was the assassin filled with hatred, fired that shot. That shot was fired with a high-powered hunting rifle. Once again, taking away the human that Medgar Evers was and the significance that he held to so many people, including his wife and his children. He was transported to the hospital by members of the community along with his wife, and he was pronounced dead as a result of that shot.
The assassination of Medgar Evers was the first murder of a nationally significant leader of the civil rights movement in America, and his killing sparked passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Evers home behind me is now a national monument, a museum operated by the National Park Service. Medgar Wiley Evers was born in 1925 in Decatur, Mississippi. He served with the U.S. Army in World War II. Returning home, he enrolled in Alcorn Agricultural and Mechanical College, where he earned a degree in business administration. And in 1954, Evers became the first field secretary for the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in Mississippi. His focus, organizing voter registration drives, fighting against segregation, and advocating for the rights of African Americans. Since his death nearly 60 years ago, Evers' family has continued to carry his torch, touting civil rights, voter registration, and equality. First, let's just talk about the 60th anniversary of your father's passing, assassination. What does this mean, and why is it so significant?
It's significant to me because it's honoring who he was when he was alive, all the movements that he made for all of us in Mississippi and throughout the nation that were positive about justice. So we're honoring those who took and had the courage to make sure that justice was served. 60 years ago almost is when the assassin took my father's life. And it changed my family's life forever.
Your mother just celebrated her 90th birthday.
90, yes.
And she's still out there.
She's not out there as much.
But she's still giving the message.
Oh, she is.
At 90 years old. Is this going to be the last time we really see her in public throughout the celebration and honor and commemoration that come up in June?
Yes, it is. She's slowed down. 90 years, you tend to slow down a little bit. And, you know, things are changing within her and her health. And she said, Rena, if I travel, it's going to be one more time. And this is the time. And so it's really going to be her last full public appearance because she goes, I'm retiring. I said, Mom, you'll never retire. But she's retiring from a big public appearances.
I was full of vengeance. And I remembered later the scripture that my grandmother would repeat to me. Vengeance is mine, said the Lord. Myrlie, wake up, trust, and fight. Not only for yourself and your children, but all of the other women, men, boys, girls, little children, because Medgar Evers would have wanted you to do so. That is your mission from this time on. I took on that mission the best that I could, making some mistakes along the way, but learning from those errors, still determined to see that justice prevailed.
And so we want to show her how much we care and respect what she's done and what my father's done and what so many others have done. That's what this commemoration's about. The voices of courage and justice. And she's still feisty. She still has opinions.
Talk about a little bit about your childhood and and how things were growing up as a child here in Mississippi, and then when you left.
We had a great life, to be honest with you. And people look at me when I say that. But our house was full of love. And my father protected us as much as he could. And I say that because he was a great dad. He taught us how to survival tactics, but he did it in the best way. He did it as a game to find out several things, but one of the games was what's the safest place in the house? And so we had to go around and do different ways of, would we go to the bedroom, would we go to the closet? And we figured out the best place was the bathroom and the bathtub. because we could get low. My father was a veteran. He fought in Normandy on the Red Ball Express, so he was on the front lines all the time. And so he used those military tactics to teach us. But we thought it was a game. But I still have it, and I use it, and I taught my kids.
It's been 60 years since your father's assassination. What is it that you want young people to know about your parents? And do you think they understand what's going on in the history of your mother and father?
Well, I think what's important is that all generations, but especially the younger generations now, to understand that what's happening right now, where you can go, what you can do, was only given to us not that long ago. I'm standing here where I was not able to go into certain stores, eat at certain restaurants, go to a movie theater and go really on the first floor. You had to go up in the rooster's nest. I mean, it has not been that long ago. And if you don't know what happened at that time period, and you're not aware, you won't be aware of the signs that is changing back to that. And so understanding what people fought for and laid their lives down for are critical. Understanding that what you have as convenience now was not convenient then. It was not a given. And to respect the people that really worked for you to get what you have now and to work to keep it.
When you talk to people who aren't from Mississippi or outside Mississippi and they say, hey, Mississippi is last, they still have this stigma about what the state is, what do you say to them if they think that Mississippi is still somewhat backwards?
Every state is backwards. Mississippi has a lot of historical trauma. It's hard to rise above that. But what I say is that we are working to rise above that. We're not waiting just to let it happen. And Mississippi are fighters. And what is disappointing when they say it's last and everything, just come here. Just come here and see. Make sure that you talk to the people. Make sure that you go around and check out the different venues, because the love and the humanity that is given, you will see it and you will receive it. And then you will want to come back and you want to help us get to the highest level we can, because we're worthy.
Freedom writer Hezekiah Watkins was sent to prison and put on death row at the age of 13. He met Evers as a teen and would eventually become inspired by his leadership.
I thought he was coming in with the same old talk that we have had in the past, that I've heard in the past, that didn't go anywhere. But until we did a march, we did a boycott of a store. Not only did he organize the boycott, he was there himself. And that made me feel somewhat better by him being there. My thing and others was, I'm not gonna let you hit me upside my head and I don't retaliate. That was our mindset back then. And this was before things really got out of hand in terms of the beatings, the murders that took place. I just was not a believer of nonviolence. And I recall a night, I can't recall the name of this church, but it's off Martin Luther King. It was a mass meeting there, and my group, about 15 of us, we sitting in the back of the church. And when Medgar came in, everybody stood and gave him a standing ovation. We sat looking, because, we don't want to hear this nonviolent. So when he was introduced to the crowd, Medgar got up and made a statement. He said, I want to talk directly to that group of young men in the back. And we began hunching each other. Hey, talking about us, man. Talking about us now. He said, I have a couple of questions I need to ask. We still hunching each other. That's us. He said, how many of you have guns? Everybody in the church raised their hand. How many of you have ammunition? Hand goes up. He said, the last question is, once you run out of ammunition, what you gonna do? We kind of looked around at each other. And then he went on to say, have you ever seen a dog? I'll never forget this. Have you ever seen a dog chasing a car? That dog bark be so ferocious that he's gonna eat the car up. But once that car stops, that dog relaxes. And that dog asks himself, what do I do now? So that's what you'll be asking yourself when you run out of those little few bullets that you have. What do I do now? And it put something on my mind. It really did. And I'm saying, this man here has a point. Once you don't have any ammunition, what you gonna do? Say, I'm sorry? But he changed my life from being violent to nonviolent.
Flonzie Brown Wright is a civil rights activist who in 1968 became the first black woman elected to public office in Mississippi since the Reconstruction era. She worked with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and later became good friends with Medgar Evers' widow, Myrlie Evers.
Well, Medgar's death was my defining moment. As you say, I did not know him. I knew about him because I had been in California for many years. And when I returned back to Mississippi, started working in Biloxi, then this is when I really learned about the civil rights movement, because I knew very little about equal rights, because our parents just didn't teach us, because the mixed culture for one thing, and then they tried to shield us from the ugliness of racism. So it took me going to California when the Freedom Rides took place, coming back to Mississippi, then that's when I learned about the great inequities. Now I knew we walked to school. Our white counterparts rode to school. I knew we lived in different neighborhoods. I did not equate that as a child to racism. So no, I didn't know Medgar, but when he was assassinated, June 12, 1963, my whole life changed. What I could not understand was, how was it that a man could be gunned down in his driveway in the presence of his wife and children for just attending what I thought was just a community meeting. But I did not know, I just didn't know the seriousness of what he was doing. I did not want to do this. I wasn't going to jail. I heard about folk going to jail, being beat. I was not going to jail, so I did not choose civil rights as a vocation. I did not choose this as a career path. But God chose that for me. He told me, you gotta go. But I said, I don't wanna go. I'm a divorced mother of 3 babies. I don't want to be a martyr. I don't want to leave my children. But then God said, I would protect you. And I'm now almost 81 years old. I have been doing this for 60 years, and I'm still moving. But no, this was nothing that I chose to do. Would not have done it. But I would not now have chosen anything else, because I just wanted to help people. That was all. You know, no certificates, no plaques, certainly no money. I just wanted to be available to help people along their way.
This has been a week full of celebrations and commemorations marking the 60th anniversary of the assassination of Medgar Evers. Events are continuing tonight at the Jackson Convention Center with the Medgar and Myrlie Evers Institute Courage and Justice Gala. On Saturday, there is the Evers Parade to celebrate and honor the life of Medgar, Myrlie, and Charles Evers. June 11th is being held as Medgar Evers Sunday. And on Monday, June 12th, there will be a recognition of sacrifice and remembrance ceremony and moment of silence. We hope to see you as we honor the lasting legacy of Medgar and Myrlie Evers. While Medgar Evers is laid to rest in Arlington, Virginia, his legacy and commitment lives on through his family, his community, and a new generation of leaders. Now for our entire production team, I'm Byron Brown. Make it a safe, memorable, and enjoyable weekend.